Journey Home, Chapter 8. Come on, we're here to practice. Peter jumped up, embarrassed. Sorry, right. It happens every time. He never even missed television at Vola's, but when he went to Ben's house, he always collapsed in their family room and stared at it, slack-jawed, until Ben knocked his shoulder and reminded him of why they were there. He scooped up his glove and followed Ben out the door. Astrid, Ben's little 5-year-old sister, followed too, as usual. Secretly, Peter had nicknamed her Echo, not just because she copied everything her brother said or did, and not just because she was a smaller version of him, pale hair, freckled, and determined, but because somehow she was also fainter, as if she weren't quite there, as if this whole life thing was a toss-up for her, except for how much she adored Ben. Outside, Ben picked her up and planted her on the porch steps. He put a bag of sunflower seeds beside her. Watch this for us, and stay up here. We're going to be throwing pretty hard, okay? Pretty hard, okay? She agreed. Peter peeled off his sweatshirt. Spring had been coming on fast the past week. It was baseball weather. The driveway was rocky, perfect for practicing grounders. For a while they threw low and sharp towards each other, and mostly they caught the balls, no matter how unpredictably they spun out. It felt good to play with somebody who loved baseball as much as Peter did, who could focus as hard. When they did miss, one called the other, "Has been," or "petered out," and that felt good too, because the corny joke was familiar now, after a year. But then one grounder took a rogue bounce and hit the corner of the house and spun into the plantings. Ben went for it, as he was trotting back, he called, "Westville won't know what hit him." Peter pulled his glove off, pretending to adjust the lacing. "I'm not playing summer ball." "What are you talking about?" Peter picked up his own ball and snugged it into his glove. Practice would be over because of what he had to say next. What he decided last night. "I'm signing up with the Junior Water Warriors." Ben laughed. "No, you're not. They aren't coming here. Our water's okay. Come on, put your glove on." He ran back to his position. "No, listen. I know they're not coming here. I'm going there. I leave Saturday." Ben grew still, a fist on his hip. "Going where?" "Back to where I used to live." The idea had struck last night when he learned that the Water Warriors were scheduled to clean up a site in his old town. He didn't need Vola's offer of a home because he already had one. He would do a stint with the Water Warriors there and be within walking distance of his own house. But that's like 100 miles away. 300. "Vola's letting you?" Peter shrugged. "I'm telling her tonight, but she'll let me." Peter turned away and began tossing the ball up onto the garage roof. Peter understood, because baseball was a language they shared, the throw and catch of it, the way they had to learn to predict each other's moves, the way they could say real things, the hardest things, as long as they kept their eyes on the game. Right now, Ben was saying, "Okay, I need a little time by myself with this news." Suddenly, Peter didn't want that. Ben had had his back since the first day Peter had walked into the school. All new kids' nerves are lonely with PAX. "You could come too," Peter said now, without thinking it through. "We can share a tent. I heard they let you drive bobcats and stuff. There's canoeing, collecting samples, and I can't." "Sure you can, as long as you're over 12 and your parents sign." "No, I can't." Peter nodded over the porch steps, where his sister was shaking sunflower seeds onto her head. "Her operation," he mouthed. Astrid jumped off the porch and came running over, as if she knew she was being talked about. Ben dropped the baseball and drew her in close. He began pulling sunflower seeds out from her hair. Peter took a step back. "Oh, you mean she might—" Ben's arm tightened around his sister. "She'll be fine, but she would be scared without me there." "I would be scared," Astrid repeated. But Peter saw that she was smiling, and it was Ben who looked terrified. Right then, it struck him with a jolt. He was immune. Yes, he had lost everything. Mother, father, Fox, everything he'd ever cared about. But having lost everything, he had nothing left to lose. At 13, life could never hurt him again. Be careful, he couldn't help warning his friend. Ben looked up. What do you mean? Peter noted how Ben had gathered his sister's hair at the roots so it wouldn't hurt as he tugged the shells out. It was too late for Ben. But it wasn't too late for him. Nothing. He pulled down the bill of his cap and ran to his bike. See you around, he called, kicking off down the driveway. Wait, Ben called. Maybe I could go if I'm back in time. Never mind, I don't want company anyway. Do it. Walk away. Don't look back. Pedaling back to Vola's, he thought about how close he'd just come. A friend was the last thing he needed on a trip. Maybe a friend was the last thing he needed, period. Vola tapped a spot on the newspaper map between them. The water warriors are stationed here now. It's a reservoir about 50 miles upriver of where you used to live. Peter nodded, but didn't speak. In spite of what he'd said to Ben, and in spite of how he'd hurt Vola yesterday, he was still surprised that she hadn't put up an argument when he told her what he wanted to do. She'd been extra cautious around him all day, but that's a long way away, was all she'd said. But I understand. Vola's finger traced a path down the map. They're working downstream. When they finish at the reservoir, about a week maybe, they'll follow this river south. Peter watched her finger come to the rest on the spot where the river widened beside the old mill. It was the spot where last spring he had found PAX again after abandoning him. Where he had let him go for good. Where his father had helped rig the explosive that blew up that river, that tore the leg off that smaller fox. The spot where he had last seen them both, his father and his fox. It would be a tough place to stay, but in return, he'd get a month on his own, and after that, he would go to his old home. He would feel safe there. He could figure things out. He would go to his mother's grave, spread his dad's ashes there, making that right for her. The whole area will be dangerous, Vola said. You know how to make a solar still. Always use the iodine drops. Of course, Peter knew all this. Water safety was now a mandatory class in every school in the country. Besides, the water warriors were experts. He let her talk, though, because he knew she needed the reassurance. And just because you're in the middle of nowhere, don't assume the water is safe. The chemicals may have reached the aquifer. You come upon a pond, crystal clear, that's actually a warning sign. I know, it's clear because nothing can live in it. Look at this. She swept a hand over the map again. They're reporting there are no young of any species in the whole area this year. The young can't survive the poisoned water. Peter allowed himself to picture PAX, although it meant he would have to run the penance again today. That was okay. He was getting used to it. The penance didn't hurt so much anymore. PAX probably still lives around there, but he's not young. He'd be 6 now. I'm not worrying about your fox, boy. I'm worrying about you. The young of all species includes humans. You know, you must not take any chances. I know. I'll be careful. He stood up, folded the newspaper. One more thing. I won't be like it is here, where you can count on having what you need. Fill your cup whenever you can.